Well, hello and welcome to my porch. Happy Canada Day. Today I've got a special treat for me. Hope it will be for you. I'm going to take a look at Lohin McKinnon's Barley and Rye release they put out for last year's Canada Day 150. I'm going to open it up and give you my first thoughts. Well, as I said before the break, thank you for joining me. It is actually Canada's 151st birthday today, July 1st, 2018. This bottle from Lohin McKinnon from Central City Distillery came out last year. I picked it up after Canada 150, but have been waiting almost a whole year to give this a crack. So this will be an opening, a tasting. It can't be really a deep review because it really is just my first thoughts. But the Lohin McKinnon brand or what do they call it, labeling, comes from Central City. Central City, as I understand it, and I haven't been there, started as a brew pub or a craft brew distillery in BC, in Surrey, BC. That's the West Coast, for those of you that don't know Canada. And so they make beer, and I understand some pretty good craft beer. And then around 2010, they started saying, hey, let's put in some stills. And I think in 2013, they started putting down their own spirit. So knowing that this is put out by Central City, it says right on the bottle, under their spirit label, I guess, Lohin McKinnon, it's obviously going to be pretty young, but I think it's pretty cool. It says here, you know, to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Canada, in 2013, they started laying down some carefully selected barrels. And what they did is they have in here lightly peated barley that they distilled and then put into, where'd they put their barley? In ex Oloroso sherry barrels. Then they have a malted rye they distilled and put in ex bourbon barrels. So they did that for, really can't be more than about 4 years, and then they blended them. And they said this, you know, represents Canada has a long history of Scottish influence woven into the fabric of our amazing country. And I really like that analogy. The idea that they would take you know, a barley, which would be like a single malt, like a Scottish influence, you know, and it'd be lightly peated. And then they would take a rye, which is, you know, certainly Canada's best known for its rye whiskey, and then they would put it together. So it's bottled at 43%. It doesn't say if it's chill filtered or if it's colored. I'm going to suggest that's a really nice looking color. If it's only 4 years, it might be a little colored, which would be too bad. But very curious about this, right? Smoky barley, spicy rye. We'll see how it comes together. Very excited. I hope you guys are having a good Canada Day. If you're in the US, I imagine you're not celebrating Canada Day. Looking forward to your July 4th coming up pretty quick. But certainly all of my fellow Canadians, I hope you found something interesting to pour to celebrate our nation. There is another unique shared kind of Canadian-American thing we have today, which I should know as a good Canadian, but I certainly relearned when I was looking at the 2018 release of J.P. Weiser's. You know, they do an annual release on Canada Day, or at least they have the last 2 years. And it says that this marks the 200th anniversary of the end of the war, where we set up the 49th parallel as the border. Anyways, I digress. So this is from Central City, Surrey, BC, under the label Lohin McKinnon. This was a limited release, barley and rye. Let's see how the nose is. Wow, that's interesting. So I can get a little bit of smoke or peat on the nose. Well, actually, I'm going to say, for me, a little more peat than smoke, but just a hint of that vegetable, meaty. Actually, the nose does seem like kind of a lightly peated Islay, more than rye. I was expecting then to get into the floral and spice of the rye. I'm not getting that so much in the nose, but pleasant. Really, I would say pretty good for what must be about a 4-year-old whiskey. Well, I'll have to come back to it. A little bit of candy sweetness. But more of that earthy peat for me came up quick. But I'm looking for tasty notes. Not in any way overwhelming. Very light, very light. I'd say if you just brought it in, you'd go, I don't know what would be your first impression. Yeah, just gentle, really. I mean, it's whiskey, so there's still some of that alcohol in there, but a little bit of floral in there, a little bit of grassy notes, and some sweet, some honey sweet. But I definitely can catch the peat, which excites me because I love peat. Let's give it a taste. A lot of flavor going on in here. Again, a little bit of that meatiness, a little bit of that smokiness, a little bit of brine in there, a little saltiness. But there's some baking spices coming through, probably from the rye. We got allspice, clove, cinnamon. Doesn't light up my tongue as much as I expected. You know, rye for me, I often pick it up quite a bit on the edges of my tongue. Here, I'm getting it more in the finish, kind of that warm hug. It's only 43%, so it's not gonna blow you over with. There, a little bit of wood. So, the nose for me is a little bit smoke, a little bit peat, light sugar, honey. The taste. Is spicy but not peppery. I mean, there's some pepper in there, but not, by spicy I mean that layers of baking spices and all sorts of different layers. And a little bit of peat. Not much. Peat I'm getting more in the nose really than in the palate. There's some there, some sort of a vegetable. Okay, now there's a little bit of medicine-y note. Like a medicinal, like a, some peats can be a little bit of that. This is very tasty though. I'm already enjoying it. I'm just into it. I'd love to. Okay, now I get some of those same kind of wood and baking spices coming back on the nose now that I've had a few sips. Well, that did not disappoint. That did not disappoint at all. Now you have to take any kind of rating, I would say right now, with lots of salt. And there's a bit of salt in here. Just because I just opened this bottle. It's gotta change as I get to know it. And so giving it a rating really is unfair. But I will say this. I'm enjoying it already. It's got lots of different things in there for you to discover, to talk about. Yep, lots of dimensions. I love the story of blending some smoke, some smoked barley with a Scottish influence in our Canadian heritage with the rye from the prairies. I think it's got a great story. I love it. I love what they're doing. This will inspire me to look for other Lohin McKinnon products if they're at all as good as this. I have been hard pressed to find some other reviews of this, which is kind of fun. The spice is now, like, how long have I been talking? The finish is long enough that even now I got some of that crackle pepper spice from rye, which I was not getting till just now. So it's in there, which is awesome. Guys, thanks for joining me here on the deck. I hope you have tried to find some decent Canadian whiskey out there. Sometimes when my American friends on YouTube pour Canadian whiskey, I just hope you can find stuff like this. I would say, Lohin McKinnon, this particular thing, I'd totally recommend trying. It's a little youthful. I'm being maybe a little generous. You might find a little bit of that alcohol note because it is a bit youthful, but I don't think you'll be disappointed with the flavor profile of this bottle whatsoever. If you're still digging around, if you can find anything by Two Brewers, it's phenomenal stuff. And then really all of the new rare releases that JP Weiser's putting out, the cask strength lot 40, I just can't get enough of that rye. Anyways, guys, thank you again for joining me. Have a great and happy Canada Day. And enjoy the week if you celebrate off into July 4th and beyond. Take care.